Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our session for this evening. We are discussing on the fierce conversation, which is based on Dr. Michael Hall's book, Coaching Conversation. It is part of our monthly meta coaching series, and we also have the Neuro-Semantics series, relationship series, and also the parenting series. And it is a pleasure and honor for me to be with you this evening. And I hope that you'll be able to take something that is useful of value from the discussions that we are going to have during this session. So all of you know me already, so I'll skip that introduction part. And let's look into what we'll be discussing. And the value that I would like to invite you to be thinking about is whether you are as a professional coach, you are coaching professionally, or you are bringing in the coaching conversation in your daily interactions with the people around you. I hope that this fierce conversation will be useful for you. In the 90 minutes together, we'll be discussing on first the theoretical framework behind the fierce conversation. The next topic will be the fierce pursuit of truth, and we'll be looking at a few fierce questions, the questions that will be running at the back of your mind that will allow you to ask the fierce questions. And one other topic that we will be discussing is the conversation in the crucible. The crucible is where we bring ourselves and our client into to keep it safe, to keep it secure. And what is that conversation that we are going to have in that crucible? So those are what we'll be discussing in the 60 to 90 minutes together. And as usual, I will pause for discussion after each main point. This is to invite questions, comments, or contributions coming from you. And for the meta coaches, I hope that what we'll be discussing will serve as a reminder about what you have learned before. And I want to invite you to bring in examples of sharing from your own experience in coaching. And if any one of you are new to the coaching topic, because the Neuro-Semantics and the meta coaching series are a little bit more technical and in-depth. So if any terms, any jargon that I use, you are not familiar with, feel free to explore, to ask questions. And as usual, to remind you that my style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our silly human qualities. My purpose is to lighten things up, reduce being serious, and be more real. So again, I'd like to welcome all of you to this session. Guat Cheng, Coach Tan, Louise, Chek Siu, Sarah, and also TK, who just joined us. Thank you for being here. It is a pleasure and honor for me to be with you this evening. What we'll be discussing this evening will encircle these main points. So what are these points or questions? One is that what is a fierce conversation? How does it relate to coaching? Does fierce mean threatening, confrontative, critical, or does it refer to something else? If we fiercely pursue a subject to its core truth, won't we offend or threaten the coaching relationship? And what's the purpose of a fierce conversation? So these are the questions that I hope you'll hold in mind as we move into the discussion for this evening. So let's get into the first topic that we are going to, the first point that we are going to talk about this evening, which is the theoretical framework. So what I'll be doing, I'm doing right now is I'm sharing with you my screen. Yes, I believe that you can see this screen right now.
Yeah,
so
can see.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your feedback. So we are looking at the theoretical framework of the fierce conversation. The fierce conversation is a conversation that really matter, that really get to the heart of things, that lead to transformation. And this conversation, it is neither easy nor shallow. Anybody can have the easy and shallow conversation. Most people do that. These easy and shallow conversations, in fact, are all too common. They are conversations that don't make much difference. They are only nice chats. These are also not the conversations that a coach would coach a person to a greater excellence or expertise or unleash potential. So as a coach, we are not having nice conversations with our client in the context of as a leader, coaching the people around you. Yes, there are times that you have nice conversations, and there are times that you want to go fierce to the heart of the matter, because these conversations, the conversations that matter, are more fierce. If I were to use the analogy that Graham Richardson used with respect to a coaching conversation, Graham Richardson is one of the prominent master coaches in the world today. He used the term ruthless compassion. Compassionate in the sense that we want to get into the heart of the issue that's stopping our client from being the best that they can be. At the same time, there is that ruthlessness that we will not allow the client to call themselves short, to be able to give themselves too much excuses. So what do we mean by fierce? By fierce, we mean a robust, rigorous, energetic, focused, intense, in-depth, probing, caring, and committed to the truth, to the person, no matter what. So the focus here is the client in relation to his or her desired outcomes. So as a coach, that is what you stay true to. So if the client were to waver, the conversation were to go away from the outcome that the client wants, that is where we hold them to get to the outcome that they want. This is what we are referring to fierce, because sometimes there's something that's blocking them from getting at the outcome that they want, and they just want to avoid it. Yeah. And when we allow them to avoid it, we are not doing them any favors. Yeah. If I may give you an example of a nice conversation. This happened when I was learning meta coaching in one of the practice sessions. So luckily I had a meta coach benchmarking me, but I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and she was saying that her outcome for that conversation is for her to stop smoking. And we went through that conversation, and it came to the point whereby I asked her, so when will you stop smoking? When will you quit smoking? And she thought for a moment, and she said, when I get back to Switzerland. Yeah, we were in Grand Junction, Colorado, and she came from Switzerland. She answered, when I get back to Switzerland. And this was the rookie me. I remembered that incident very well, because I say, oh, that's great. So when you get to Switzerland, and I allowed the conversation to go there. So I was not being fierce, because when she said that she wanted to quit smoking when she get to Switzerland, notice that it's bringing her away from her goal of quitting smoking, at least for another week. And I did not have that focus at that time. Luckily, I had a meta coach benchmarking me right after that. My meta coach put in that particular point. And then I realized, okay, I just let her go scot-free. And because of that, I was depriving her from achieving her goal right there and then. So this is what we are referring to. The focus is on the client in relation to his or her desired outcome. It is not about having a nice chit-chat or whatsoever. It is about getting to the client to get their desired outcomes. If anything comes in between, that's when the coach, you need to put their feet to the fire so that they will get and achieve their outcome. That is what we are referring to as a fierce conversation. And for most people, a fierce conversation only happens once or twice in a lifetime because they don't have somebody to coach them. It happens when something suddenly is on the line and someone calls up the courage to speak up, to care enough to no longer be silent and to change and to chance rejection. Typically in our relationships, we notice something's going wrong with the people around us. We keep quiet, right? And that person continues in their despair, going through the hardship that they go through because the people around them do not want to, what I call chance rejection from the person and just don't speak up. Yeah. They may not be coachable at that point in time. However, as a coach, that is when we want to be fierce, to bring in that conversation. Now, for people who are forever growing and stretching themselves to new goals, new expressions of creating and becoming, or who are committed to their personal excellence and development, fierce conversations are much more frequent, perhaps even in a regular staple in life. They love them. They hunger for them. They want to be challenged, held accountable, and invited to go where they have not gone before. And what I can say that I'm so grateful about, because as a coach, I am seeing that on a regular basis with my clients. They come to me to be coached and they are looking for growth. So that's why the fierce conversations come in and they hunger for these conversations because these conversations are what will help them to grow. We take the phrase fierce conversations from Susan Scott's book by that title. Yeah. So in neurosemantics, we borrow that term as well, as Michael mentioned over here. It came from the book that Susan Scott wrote. As an executive and corporate consultant and coach, she describes a fierce conversation as one where people have the courage to interrogate reality. In the next point, we are going to look into that in more specific detail. To interrogate reality, come out from behind ourselves, be present and real, to participate as if the conversation absolutely matters. The intensity and strength of a fierce conversation is such that it expresses each person's passionate eagerness to live life fully and not to miss the magical moments where transformation could occur. In a fierce conversation, we use our own reality or authenticity to pursue the truths of our life. So when we mention about reality, is that there is that objective reality out there, which we call the territory. When we have a fierce conversation, we are comparing our internal subjective reality, which is our map, with the territory. That is, we come out from behind ourselves as both the coach and the client. We set out to search for the truth of how we feel, what we want, what we are truly thinking, the frames that truly govern our matrix, and how to accurately describe the heart of the subject. The implication is that it takes real and truthful people to explore the truth of a situation and to fiercely pursue the truth. Why? Because for most people, realizing that their map is far from the territory or not the same as the territory, it's very uncomfortable. So a fierce conversation is about putting the client to bring the territory right up in front of the client's face, so that when the territory is dissimilar to the map, the client is able to see that territory and take that as their new map. So that's basically the theoretical background to this. So I would just like to open up for discussion. And before I do that, just like to welcome our friends who've just joined us. Rosita, that's my wife, Ibu Rose, joining in. And also Jay.
Jay from Philippines.
Hello, Coach. Hello, coaches.
Wow, it's such a pleasure to see you after so long.
Hello from the Philippines.
Salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So just like to open up for questions or discussion. G, you raise your hand. Is there anything that you like to say?
I'm just wondering about the territory.
Mm-hmm.
We know the territory because the territory is something that's beyond us to know.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you for asking that. Now, this is what we call, I use the term, the territory is objective reality. The reason why we call it objective reality is you can poke at it and you can measure it. You can determine what it is. Now, our map is objective reality. It is based upon our map is subjective reality. It is subject to our thoughts, our feelings, our filters, our meta programs. So it's subject to all of those. And how do we know? So this is understanding the meta model of language, understanding the NLP communication model, whereby questioning the generalizations, deletions, and distortions, it allows us to come closer to the objective reality. Yeah. So the primary tool that a coach does in this fierce conversation is not about the coach making evaluation or judgment that the client is having wrong ideas, wrong concepts. However, using the meta model of language and using meta questions to allow the client to re-evaluate what they have in their mind and map it out against the objective reality. This allows them to go past the generalizations, the deletions, and the distortions. So that's why on Saturday's talk that Michael spoke about, he went into the meta model in so much greater depth. So as a coach, that would be our primary tool, the meta model of language, that through the fierce conversation that allows the client to come up to the to be able to see the objective reality. In the example that I gave to you, I would say the mistake that I made in my coaching practice with one of my classmates in ACMC, when she said that when I asked her, so when do you plan to quit smoking? And she answered, when I get back to Switzerland. So after that coaching practice, my coach gave the feedback. Mazuki, what should have been the question that you need to ask there? So what's stopping her from quitting now? So when my coach said that, I just went like that. So I just let her go scot-free for a few weeks, meaning to say, deprive her of achieving her goal at that point in time, because by not asking, so what's stopping you from quitting now? That would reveal the obstacle that is actually behind her quitting smoking. So that is what we are referring to, how for them to be able to see the map, because currently they are working on certain frames, and because they are not aware of that frame, they confine their actions and behaviors to what the frame is. So by bringing in the meta model questions, allows them to see the frame that is preventing them from achieving the goal. In the context that I gave you just now, that allows her to see what's the presupposition that she's operating from that's preventing her from quitting smoking immediately. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. So it is not for us to serve the client with our reality. As a coach, our reality has no bearing in the conversation. Yeah. So what is critical in the conversation is the client's reality. How far is the client's reality from the objective reality?
It is objective reality. It is not the territory.
The territory is the objective reality.
I'm still stuck at the place whereby can a human being be able to expand her map or his map to actually understand the territory, to be able to actually see the whole thing. It can't be expanding the map to see from different perspective, to delete what to what call all the three, generalizing, deletion, and to expand that. And another thing that I was also thinking that because when it is said the territory is the absolute truth, that's why I understand. That is my understanding about territory, the absolute truth. So a person coming from a different level of education, all that, will see things differently.
Yeah.
Right? So never mind. I'm just stuck at that place. Maybe and your further explanation will actually get my on that.
Yeah. So in the next point, we will be talking about truth in a little bit more detail in the next point. But since you mentioned it, it's just that we human beings will not be able to see the truth fully and completely because so many factors are involved. However, when as a collective body, we are able to bring our collective observations together, then we get nearer and nearer to the absolute truth. However, over here, we are not referring to the absolute truth. In the next point, the fierce pursuit of truth, I'll be going into that in more detail. It's just that things like the earth is a sphere. Okay, so to a certain extent, as a collective body, we have come to the point whereby, yes, we do agree to a large extent that the earth is a sphere. Yet there are still pockets of people who disagree with that. And so that's why when it comes to absolute truth in the coaching relationship, we are not referring to that. We are referring to something else. Yeah. Thank you.
Understand. So, thank you.
Let's move to the next point. Anyone has got any other questions or comments before we move to the next point? So are you okay there?
Mr. Masuki.
Yes, Louise.
Yep, I have a question here. So just now you did mention that your territory is the objective, what is it?
Reality.
Reality.
Object, yeah.
Okay. So is it can apply into a situation something like this? Because actually my actual occupations is I work as a Scrum Masters. So in order to guide the squad in all the agile knowledge to make sure that we are really practicing the real agile method. So most of the time is the squad or I can say the technical teams which I guide or mentoring, they don't really have a very in-depth agile knowledge. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the certain extent, I really need to enforce and say that they have to do this and not following their own way. So when it comes to this kind of extent, right, is it something that is one of the examples that I'm able to apply in just now the points that you have been given? Just like I try to map their map, okay, over the what you call, use the territory to map across the map, something like that. Mm-hmm. Because their understanding on agile is different from mine. Because I want to guide them with the right agile method, which is they have to really follow on this. The real agile what you call methodology.
Okay. So this is referring to a certain process that is in place. Agile is a process that is in place. So they have many different concepts about what agile is. So you as the mentor here, I will use the word mentor because you are bringing in the concept that needs to be followed. Because anyone can have many different concepts, but you need to have a certain concept that is, I would say, standardized to be followed. So since you are the one who is defining it, yes, so you are the bearer of the map. You are the bearer of the territory. So this is what they need to model their map on. So your concept of what agile is now considered as the territory for them to model their map on. So that is why if they are not pursuing agile according to the processes that you bring in place, then you are in the position to correct them because this is what they need to be following. Does that somehow close to the question that you asked?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, so let's move to the next point, which is on the fierce pursuit of truth. So as Rosita asked just now regarding the word truth. Regarding the word truth, we are not using it as an absolute term. After all, truth is not sensory-based term. So does not refer to anything that we can see, hear, or feel. Because truth as a term does not refer to a thing, but a concept. Yeah? It is a concept. So truth in itself is a concept. You have the territory, which is objective reality. Now we say it is objective because you can measure it with what you see, hear, feel, taste, and touch, and smell. Okay, that's why we call it objective. But when we use the word truth here, we are referring to the concept of truth. So just as a person may say, the truth is the world is flat. Another person say the truth is the world is a sphere. And another one say the truth is the world is like a pizza. So something like that. So it is a concept. Truth linguistically is what we call a nominalization, a verb turned into a noun, so that it seems like an external real thing. It is not. It is in here. Truth is in here. There is no actual thing we are referencing in our sense of truth. What we are asking are the questions, what is really, actually, or truly present? So when we talk about truth, we are referencing to what's really, actually, truly present out there. Truth refers to a concept and understanding, a set of assumptions. So when we say that something is true, we mean that we hold it as existing or accurate. Yeah, let me just stop screen sharing for a moment. When we say that something is true, we mean that we hold it as existing and accurate within some domain of understanding. So when we ask, what is the truth about X, something? So what is the truth about X? We are asking, given the premises and assumptions of Y, let's say the background knowledge and presupposition, what is true in this domain? That's basically what we are asking. For example, gravity. So what is true about gravity? What is the truth about gaining and losing weight? What is the truth about getting a raise in the company? So when we ask those truths, we are referring to what are the premises and assumptions that people have about something. So as a coach, when we ask the fierce questions, what we are doing is that we want to explore the truth in the client. Yeah? We want to explore the truth. We need the whole series of questions backing that up. Yeah. So when we talk about truths, we at the back of our mind, as we are talking to the client, asking the fierce question, who is it true for? Who is it truly for? When is it true? Where is it true? So notice here, I am not bringing my truth to the client. I am exploring how the client is building this concept of truth inside of them. Under what circumstances and conditions? In what way is it true for him or her? How does the person know to view it as true? True according to what set of understandings? So these are the questions that we hold in our mind when we ask the client these questions. So going back to this, what we call chart. So the territory out there represents the truth in the objective reality. Now, each and every one of us hold these truths in our mind. So that is why those questions, as a coach, when we hold in our mind, when the client gives us their truth, so we want to be asking ourselves and verbalizing it to the client. So who is it truly for? When is this true? Where is this true? Under what circumstances and conditions is this true? In what way is it true for this person, for you? How do you know to view this as true? True according to what set of understandings? So again, whatever answer that the client comes to us, it is not for us to judge whether the answers fit a certain criteria that we have, but we evaluate the answers in the context of the client in relationship with the outcome that they want. So if the client gives the truth to them, the truth that is preventing them from achieving the outcome, that is when the truth is not useful. However, when they have a truth that is going to bring them towards their outcome, then as a coach, we have no issues with that. Because once we have a well-formed outcome, all that we are doing with the client is to help the client to achieve the well-formed outcome. So this is where the coach doesn't bring the evaluation whether the client knows the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. No, that's not what the coach is doing. The coach is determining, is this truth the client is holding, is this truth resourceful or unresourceful for the client? Okay, so I'm going to pause there. Let's have some feedback, questions, or comments. So go ahead.
Coach Marzuki.
Yes.
Hello. Just going back to resourceful and unresourceful.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't we define also resourcefulness again as to our concept of what will bring out the outcome? So that's, I think, one of or out of how we understand would help the client go to the well-formed outcome. Am I right? Maybe the conflict there is that, of course, we also have our own concept of what will be resourceful and what is not resourceful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we resolve that?
Okay. Now,
that thing. Thank you, Coach.
Now, it is not for me as the coach to determine whether it is resourceful or not. It is for the client.
Yeah.
So if the client tells me a certain truth,
okay.
So I'm asking, so is that useful for you in achieving your goal? If the client say no, then I know it's not resourceful. They tell me.
I think to add on, I believe many times, despite people say this truth is resourceful, it's still useful for us to further deepening the meta question further, in which situation that is considered resourceful, in which context or which situation it will not be resourceful. Or you can even ask question like, would that be resourceful for only you or only resourceful for all the people that you work with? Because we may see the truth in the different perspective when we go deeper or when we go meta model it. It may be truth only on one context, but it may not be truth in many other contexts. And let them reinforce what is truth and what is not truth.
Thank you, Coach Tan. What you mentioned over there is also the boundary of truth, and the boundary, because a person may have a certain truth about something, but what is at the back of my mind as the coach, wanting to understand the client's map, I'll be asking the question of, so who is this true for? When is it true? Under what context is this true? So I want to understand that from the client as well. And by asking those questions, it allows the client to map out the boundary of whatever the truths are, because we human beings, we have all of those boundaries. So if I were to bring a certain concept without boundaries, boundless, I may be applying that concept in ways that are not useful for me, that can be dangerous for me. Yeah. So this is also, I was having a chit chat with Ibu Rosita just now. We were watching this series on Netflix. Downton Abbey. So there's this maid, yeah, and she wanted to. She began flirting with one of the considered as the masters in the house, and Rosita was asking me, why does she do that? And what I said to her was that in her context, that maid, she's you can call regular people. So there's that nobility, and these are we as regular people over here. For regular people, we talk to one another. We want to attract one another. That's okay, because the context is it's between us. But when you move into nobility, they have a certain other rules of the game. Yeah, the maids are not supposed to speak to the noble men or ladies. You're not supposed to speak openly. So those are the rules of the game. So knowing where the boundary of your truths. Yeah? Another example that I gave is that when I say football, I'm referring to the real football, the football where you play with your foot. Okay, some people, they call it football, but they play it with their hands. So that's not football. That's my truth. Okay, so I go onto a football field. The context is in that football field, I only touch the ball with my foot. However, that is the truth in a football field. I go into a hockey pitch. I cannot bring that truth with me, because if I touch the ball with my foot and not with a hockey stick, then I get a whistle foul. So by asking these questions, we let the client identify what are the boundaries to the truth. Because when you take it outside of the context, then it is not resourceful anymore. And the client will be able to know that. Yeah. Is that helpful, Jay?
Yes, Coach. It's just that what's in my mind is just that, of course, this is when the coachee is clear. Of course, that's why he's in the coaching. That's why he's confused, right? So it's up to us to just ask all the questions to be clear.
Yeah.
So the person may not be able to respond immediately because the person will still be thinking.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to detect that and ask the corresponding questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Anyone else has got any comments?
Mr. Masuki, so it means that the resourceful it means like it must be within the scope kind of thing, right? If let's say if it is something out of scope, then that is not a topic, right?
Yeah, the word resource here, resourceful, here refers to, we talk, so I'm bringing to you the SCORE model. Remember, in the SCORE model, you have the, here's the outcome. Here is the current state. This is the desired state, is the current state. So when we talk about resourcefulness, we are talking about what is it that you need to bring you from where you are to where you want to go. So again, I mentioned to you, our focus is the focus of the client, where the client is right now in relation to his well-formed outcome. Yeah? So resources here refers to, when we talk about, is that resourceful to you? We are referring to, is that truth that you have in your mind bringing you closer to your goal or not? Yeah. So it is always in the service of the client achieving their outcome.
Okay. So for example, right? Example, like, okay, now we talk to a student just after SPM or O-level kind of things. So they say, I want to study in America. Okay. So we talk about, okay, so if you want to go to America, you need to, I mean, to do this, to do that, kind of thing. So it's about further study in America. So after like 15 minutes talking about that kind of thing, then suddenly he said, after my graduation, can I work in America? Can I get citizenship? So when it comes to all this, is it out of the scope or like how kind of thing, where the resourcefulness of that person to advise that particular student become like how?
Yeah. So this is where what you as the coach wants to realize that those are multiple objectives. So we have one conversation at one time. So if the conversation about going to America to study there is complete, so you have achieved the KPI for that particular conversation. So, okay, so this is done. So you would like to open another conversation. So when you handle it one after another, then the clarity would come in. But if you bring in everything at one go, then it can cause greater confusion for the student.
I totally agree with Mᴇᴛસો here, because in many cases when we call coachee here or somebody that you want to help, they have a double-mindedness in terms of the objective. So as a coach, you have to be precise, focus on one particular outcome that you want to work with first. So whatever the outcome, you focus on that. Whether this is resourceful, it links back to that particular outcome. And you cannot go and compare with many other outcomes, because that resourceful may not be resourceful for this outcome, but it might be resourceful for other outcome. So it cannot be 10 different outcomes to work at one go. And that's not possible, because then we don't have focus. And there's no well-formed look anymore, because there's no really one outcome.
So basically, it's one thing at a time, lah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If there people have many outcome they want, and normally I will always ask them, among all the 3 outcomes that you want, which one that will create biggest impact to you, that will be impacting you positively, that you want to get us to focus on or to support you first. So we must speak on one zone rather than talk on general context. And I think this is very common. And I see many coaches, when they work on the conversation, the outcome is not defined. And then we go deeper into planning. I say, how do you plan on outcome that's not decided? You cannot decide on something like you haven't decided where you want to go. Then how do you talk about what is your plan? You know, sometimes the question is too quickly it go into what is your plan? I say, what is a plan? I don't even agree on my outcome yet. How do I tell you my plan? Because I don't even know I want to go to Singapore or Philippines. So I cannot tell you I must take flight. Or can I walk to Philippines?
So it's something like you...
doesn't make sense already, right?
I see. So it means like in a layman term, like you just go to a bus station without a destination, and how are you going to buy bus ticket, right?
You cannot go to the counter there and say, okay, give me a ticket, any ticket, just tell me, and as long as this ticket is bring me somewhere. That is how the coaching will be ended to. They will be ended to a place that is somewhere whereby maybe not the preferred place or what the coachee wanted, or maybe if the coach is too dominant, maybe they will bring to a place where what coach wanted. But that is not the ultimate purpose of having coaching.
True. If I may, coaches, also with that, the funny thing is that with the many things that the coachee wants, sometimes if you're not fierce enough, you'll be choosing the lesser goal. In fact, as you said, Coach Tan, the most impact, which usually is the thing that they resist. So that's the thing that you need to bring up.
Thank you for coming up with that point, Jay, because that is if we don't have the fierce conversation, then we are as if we are leading our client to a lesser goal. Yeah, and we are depriving them of the best that they can achieve. Yeah. So that's why you need to have that, to be fierce in that sense.
I see. So like for example, my example also means that in this kind of cases, okay, please focus on the further study first. Don't talk about work and migration first, because without the grade, you graduate from a university in US, you don't talk about work and migrate kind of thing. So ask them to focus on the study first kind of things, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can. It doesn't mean that it has to be sequential. Certain things it can be. It can be. What do we call it? Opposite to sequential. It is
random. No.
It can be parallel.
Parallel.
Yeah. Certain things can be pursued in parallel. However, each conversation must be held one at a time, one outcome at a time. Yeah. So if, let's say, you've completed that conversation about getting that further study, the student knows exactly the plan that he or she needs to implement to get further study, and the student is thinking about working and whatever it is in America after the studies. You can have that conversation as well. It's just that now they know that there is another plan. To not mix it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the third point for this evening, which is conversing in the crucible. So the crucible here, we are referring to the metaphor. Yeah? The metaphor, real crucible is, I don't know how many of you remember in your form, I think form 4 science days, whereby in science class they give you that small crucible. Until today, I remember what a crucible is because of the experiment we did in chemistry class. Because to me it was magical. You put a crucible and you put a fire underneath it. Put a small stick of, I think it was magnesium inside there, right? Something like that, and it bursts into flame. So forever, the picture of the crucible sticks in my mind. Now, basically, in a coaching conversation, we are creating a crucible whereby the fierce fire of conversation can come in, because the crucible keeps everything intact. With the crucible, things do not flow out. It stays intact over there. The elements are safe. So in fierce conversations, we go for the heart of the matter. We relentlessly pursue an experience to understand it, to create space for transformation. Yet doing so, we hold the client's emotion and intense inner experience in the crucible of our commitment to his or her development. And we do so with compassion and gentleness, all the while firmly not letting it go. It may appear to be at odds, that compassion and gentleness, and yet we are holding the client firmly with compassion and gentleness, because that allows that intense experience and emotion to come forth. Yeah? Doing this creates a coaching containment for the client, a place where it is safe to explore. Without this crucible of compassion and commitment, the client doesn't feel safe to enter into the conversation. So what is it that we are bringing into the crucible? Holding to the client's truth, emotion, frames, awareness, and experience into the crucible allows us to have fierce conversations that get to the heart of things. Yet, to do this takes moral courage, clarity about what we are working with and dealing with, and skill for how to converse with a firm gentleness and gentle firmness. So that's why Graham Richardson used the term ruthless compassion. The compassion is what holds that crucible in place, and that ruthlessness of holding on to the thing that is preventing them from succeeding and bringing it up so that they can see it in front of them. So what's in that crucible? What are we dealing with in that crucible? What we're dealing is human stuff, just human stuff, thoughts, emotions, sensations in the body, physiology, ideas, beliefs, memories, imaginations. So all of these are just human stuff. And yet all of that stuff is just frames. There's nothing more. That's why there's nothing to fear. There are no aliens or demons or monsters inside there. There's just strong and intense thoughts and emotions. And because it is all human, we can fully accept and embrace it and explore it. Can we not? So getting the client to accept whatever thoughts, emotions, sensations, physiology, to just accept that and embrace it. These are mine. Yeah. There is another premise that's critical for conversing in the crucible. And the premise is that it is the frame. This is the premise. This is the frame that we bring in, that we hold the crucible together. It's just like the body of the crucible. The person is never the problem. So this is the frame that we bring into that conversation. The problem is only and always the frames that the person is operating in, and sometimes experience the problem, but not the person. The person is doing the best he or she can, given those experiences within those frames. When the frames change, experience will be transformed. So that fierceness is to identify the frames, because it's the frames that is keeping the client enslaved to their current reality. We engage in fierce conversations by chasing up and down the frames to flush them out. And here's the incredible magic that's involved in this. We can't change what we are not aware of. So that's why we are holding firm to the client so that the client can see what their frames are. No wonder awareness is the first step in making changes. In fact, there are times when the mere process of becoming aware of our frames changes us. So how many of you have had that experience? The moment you realize that frame, you already have the solution. Realizing the frame is in many cases, a solution in itself. Some changes occur automatically and organically with awareness. It is the support of the coach holding the higher frames of change, transformation, possibility, opportunity, generating greater responses, becoming more skilled, that enables the person to stay in the crucible while facing the inner dragons. So that's another metaphor. What's the dragon? The frames are the dragon. The frames are attacking them. So the person is never the problem. The frames are the problem. So in the process, the client learns how to do the same for him or herself. Meaning to say, how to chase those frames up and down. So this is basically what we are doing with a fierce conversation. We are bringing the clients to be able to see their frames, because part of what we presupposition that we bring into the coaching room is that every person have the necessary resources they need to succeed. So oftentimes, that's why it happens that way, that when the clients are able to see the frames, that's when they have that aha, they know how to solve it. So this is why, as coaches, all that we are doing is that when we talk about fierce conversation, is to hold the client through to finding what are the frames that are holding them there. Once they see the frames, they can solve those issues themselves. So as a coach, we are not, that's why we are not giving any solution or advice. And to a large extent, that's coming into my personal life. I've come to the point whereby I don't give advice anymore. Because what's the point of my giving advice? Because my advice is relevant to me. I don't know if it's relevant to you. So once you see the frame, once the client sees the frame, that's when they have the answer. So this is what we are referring to as having that fierce conversation, because sometimes the client is unconsciously avoiding those frames. So that's when we want to hold them. Look at it. Be that mirror so that they can see the frames that are being reflected.
I think Mᴇᴛ is also good to highlight that, because I heard Chuck ask about mentor just now, right? Mentor is a different methodologies compared to coaching. If you are a mentor to someone, based on your experience that you have that is relevant for that person, you are not per se 100% use coaching methodologies. You still have to impart certain experience that you have to the person, but without making decision for the person. So giving you an example, like you've been there before, you experienced the challenges there before, you can tell them your experience that is relevant. Then you ask them, what is your opinion after listening to my stories? Or what is your feeling about coming to listen to my experience? Okay, and this is where for them to start mapping their frame and work within their own so-called territory that you don't know, rather than you decided for them.
Yeah. So thank you, Coach Tan, for raising that point. So that's why at the beginning of Meta Coach training, we differentiate between the professions. You have the profession of a therapist or counselor. You have that profession of consultant. You have that profession of mentor, and then there's that profession of coach. So different professions, and as a coach, you need to know what is it that you are doing at that particular point in time. Yeah. So, for example, Louis mentioned about the agile. I would consider mindset or process over here. So you are operating, Louis, you are operating as an expert over there. So as an expert, the way that you communicate is different than the way that a coach will communicate. As an expert, you are telling, you are teaching. A coach facilitates the thinking. Yeah. So however, it is not mutually exclusive. So that's why to learn that dance. So we call it the coaching dance. So sometimes you are there fully coaching a person, noticing that that person may be lacking certain skills and knowledge, and you have certain skills and knowledge. That's when you may need to dance into the role of the trainer. And from the trainer role that you're playing, now your way of communicating is different. Yeah. So to understand what you are doing at any point in time. And I want to add to what Coach Tan mentioned over here, is that mentoring, a mentor is an expert in a particular subject. So that's why you are a mentor. So as an expert, when you are speaking as a mentor, you are teaching, you are telling, because they need to learn that. So, so bringing in the coaching framework, the facilitative conversation framework into mentoring will strengthen that mentoring process much greater. I had an experience working with an organization. They are very established organization. They have experts within the organization. And for years, they have started and stopped the mentoring program because the program would run for about 2 or 3 months and then it will just die off. And when the HR came to me I need to warn you, this is in the plantation industry. So you have really strong mentors, the estate managers over here and in Malaysia, and I believe in the Philippines as well. The estate manager is like the king in the estate. Nobody questions whatever that they say. So they are supposed to mentor their subordinates from the position of the king, telling, no wonder nobody wants to be mentored. So after 2 or 3 months, the subordinates start to run away. They were scared of being
This is a very common issue in corporate, because many people are not trained to differentiate all the methodologies, and managers tend to wear multiple hats. You are managers, you are also you want to be a coach because you learn to be coaching. You also a mentor, and you mix everything together, and you are not doing the right method at the right time and the right purpose. And that's where the whole thing become no longer meaningful.
Yeah. So I like it when you use the metaphor of hat. Many people, they take everything and put it inside one hat. So that's how they confuse themselves and confuse others.
Yeah.
So as a leader, to have many hats, and put on the mentor hat, take it off, put on the coach hat, take it off, and put on the trainer hat, take it off. And you need to be aware of that. Okay. So, any other questions or comments from anyone? So that's basically what I have prepared to bring to your attention this evening about this fierce conversation. What I would just like to mention over here is, by definition, a fierce conversation refers to getting to the heart of things. It is a robust conversation because it is straightforward, honest, and transcends the kind of overly polite encounters we typically engage in. And a coach, we are not there to have just a polite conversation. We are there to bring the client to achieve their goal. So if we have to hold their feet to the fire, we hold their feet to the fire, because that will get them to achieve the goal. The power of
I'm curious, really, what is the origin that we use crucible, right? The word crucible. I think this is my personal observation. I believe crucible because of the words. It's actually like ceramic cup. That's where the crucible is. A cup ceramic is actually quite fragile, can be broken, can be, if you have the right tactic and the right technique, to poke the cup, you can break the cup. So in the conversation, conversing in Crucible carry the meaning of having the right tactic and technique that is actually to break the so-called the impact in the coaching or in the conversation. If let's say maybe you give a diamond cup, maybe it's too hard, right? Very difficult. So, but Crucible is been the fragile and yet with the proper technique and proper method, you can break the impact to the person. I think that is where the origin of why they choose Crucible metaphor rather than, I don't know, maybe aluminum cup or metal cup.
Yeah, and yes, I agree with you, Coach Tan. And another add-on, if I may bring to that, is that we use Crucible to purify metal ore. Yeah, we bring a lot the heat. The heat is the conversation, the fierce conversation. That's the heat. And as Coach Tan mentioned, the Crucible in itself can be fragile. It can be brittle because if it is ceramic, it is brittle. You drop it, it will break. So that is where the coach's skill needs to come in to hold it in place. However, because the conversation in that is so fierce, it will burn off. Just like in real life Crucible, you put in iron ore, you burn it. What remains is only the molten iron. All impurities will be burnt out. It will just go out as gas. So what remains is 100% molten iron inside there. So what we are doing is that when we bring in the heat of the fierce conversation, all of those frames that are chaining the client will be burnt off. So the Crucible is hard in the sense that is able to withstand the heat. At the same time, it is, you can say, fragile, ready to break, because it relies on the compassion and commitment of the coach. So if the coach doesn't have the compassion and commitment, then it breaks. If it breaks, the client will not be able to burn off all of those frames that are hurting them. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Coach Tan. So before we end, I'd just like to invite each and every one of you to give us your comments. What did you gain from this session this evening? Your feedback about this session. And I'd like to start with Samson. Samson, you just came in. I wonder how much you got from this session this evening. However, I appreciate your willingness to be here. You are also quite regular joining in this session. So Samson, is there anything that you'd like to say before we end the session?
I truly want to appreciate you for the presentation as usual. It has always been encouraging, and it has been building up on the lessons after one topic to another. And from the various responses, even though I joined late, but I think I have a better understanding on how to relate on the subject matter. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on this always. Thank you.
Thank you, Samson. Appreciate your being here this evening. And TK, how about you? Is there anything that you would like to say or add before we end? No? So if I may move on to Guat-Ching. Go ahead, Guat-Ching.
Thank you, Marzuki, for the session. So I found it useful. It's like a revision for the past what I have studied. Well, yeah.
Thank you, Guat-Ching. And over to you, Louise.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Marzuki. So for today's topics, right, is I can more relate to my work life since the past 2 weeks. Because for the past 2 weeks, I have a very heated conversation with my vendors. I mean, the vendors who outsource the resource to my organizations came to running on the Agile. So there is a lot of arguments over there. And I really appreciate for today's topic. And there is also have a takeaway. So really appreciate that your statement that says that whatever we do in no matter it's a mentoring or it's a coaching, we have to do it with compassion. Really have the passionate to do it. Otherwise, if we broke the the crucible, then this is where that we will end in the very, very bad situations. So just have to keep on remind myself, and also it's a learning curve for me. And hopefully, I can handle the situations better in the future, or maybe in the next few weeks for me. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luis. Appreciate that. And Sarah, how about you?
I guess for me, the key message is fierce conversation is to bring the truth out from the person. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. And Cᴏɪᴇs?
Yeah, that's bring me back like 10 years ago kind of thing when I just joined my company. Actually, this year is I just got my long service, the 10-year long service award kind of thing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Working for so many years, finally got a long service award. People say if you don't hop the job, then you can get a few more already. I say I'm not that old to get a few more long service kind of things. Then, of course, you see, when we think of things 10 years ago when I joined this organization, my previous boss always, although she's 10 years younger than me, but I think she is quite a good coach. Because why? Because Mr. Ko, you cannot simply always be the nice guy, you know. When you need to scold people, you go and scold people kind of thing. And there's a time when there's a case, right? She really made me, you better go and scold him. Until I ask you to stop, then only you can stop. To the extent kind of things, you see. So I was stuck there like, what to scold, kind of things, you see. So that's why it's a very good kind of practice. Until now, of course, I understand that what the fierce conversation, sometimes, although something not so pleasant, but we still have to say it out kind of things, you see. Like it or not, this is a brutally cruel facts kind of thing. You have to know that that's life kind of things, you see. So that's why, this is my experience in to so-called, like what the Chinese, the proverb say, one needle poke, straight away can see blood come out kind of things, you see. Yeah.
Yeah, with the right technique.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, straight away. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Cᴏɪᴇs. And over to you, Coach Tan.
Thanks, Marzuki and Jonathan and the rest. I personally like the sharing like this because I feel that we can reinforce what we already know, and as well as learn from other people's perspective. And of course, when it comes to fierce conversation, I think it's very important part of any coaching session. So if this coaching is so easy and so smooth without any difficulties, actually you don't challenge the limit. You don't go beyond the so-called the comfort zone. And that's where I think many times we need to be hard. But hard does not mean rude. I just want to be sure that we get this. Hard does not mean rude. Does not mean scold. It is not does not mean we must be blasted the person upside down with all the F letters and all this. No, it's not like that. Fierce mean it is a skill, it's a technique. It's not mean rude or make the person lose their humility and so on. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Coach Tan. And Jay.
Thank you once again, Coach Marzuki. Just like Coach Tan, it's just refreshing to be able to hear this and discuss. And actually, I missed last Saturday. So I missed that one. Something's happened, so I wasn't able to join. So this is the closest I got. And true, I'm so happy because just being able to use the terms that we have, to see you again, to have this kind of conversation. This really refreshes. And of course, at the end of the day, we coach ourselves. So it's a good reminder to start checking also on our frames. So my takeaway now is, okay, so what are the frames I am still not aware of that I am still carrying up to now? Because that's a continuous process, I believe, for all of us coaches. So it's just really wonderful to have that tonight. So thank you once again, Marzuki, Coach Tan, and everybody. Good
Thank you. Pleasure seeing you. Don't worry, I've just sent out the link to the recording to the coaches e-group and also the trainers e-group. So you'll receive that link. And last but not least, my wonderful wife, Rosita, go ahead. Are you there?
I wonder what frame she has right now.
Hi,
Rosie.
Hi. Sorry, I can't on my camera. Hi, Jay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. Hey, Abang, you're calling me wonderful wife because you want something tonight.
I wonder what frame is that.
Okay. Fierce conversation. So what I learned this evening, and taking the points from everyone, from Coach Tan and Jay and the rest, what I understand is to have this fierce conversation. There are times that we need to do that, because sometimes the person's reality is totally, we can see that, what's the word, Yang? Out of, so
I can use the word unsane.
Yes, unsane. And we have to, with compassion, to show what were you saying just now? Absolute truth for that context, so that it can save that person. So the aim is to help the person to be able to be in control of the person's emotion, his or her emotion, her thinking, so that it can be resourceful, so that the person can live in a better way, more resourceful way. However, and to do this fierce conversation, we need to have the tools, we need to have the skill, we need to have the environment to do that. And that is the crucible. The crucible, and when we learn from school, as you were mentioned just now in the chemistry where we burn things, the thing is that crucible can take a lot of heat. It can take a lot of heat without damaging itself. Even though it is brittle, it can break easily. At the same time, it is strong. So the strength of the crucible is the skill of the coach. Right? And how the coach set the stage, how the coach set with the frames and all that. And that is when we have the first conversation, we know where to bring the client at the place whereby the client would be able to feel calm, will be able to feel, yes, this is what I want in my life. I want to live this way. And it will be resourceful for himself and everyone around him.
Wow. Thank you very much. Wonderful, wonderful encapsulation. So probably what I'll just mention before we end is just that the crucible itself, just taking on from what Rosita mentioned just now, it takes a lot of love and care to create the safety, respect, and security necessary to conduct the fierce conversation. So bring that love, care, and respect. That will hold that crucible together. So with that, everyone, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
You're being here. Jay as well, it's been a long time I've seen your face, so it's wonderful.
So good. Thank you for bringing the invitation. I said, oh
yeah, good to see you, Jay. Long time.
Good to see you also, Gushan. Long time.
Yeah. So with that, thank you. I hope to see you again the next time and stay safe, and be with your loved ones and love unconditionally. So with that, good night, everyone,
night,
and
everybody.
may God bless you.
And everybody,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.